President Trump's executive actions are sparking a litany of legal challenges and legal losses. Here's what judges have already put on ice: ending birthright citizenship, Doge access to some sensitive Treasury data, freezing federal grants, loans, cutting NIH funding, buyout offer for federal employees, putting USAID employees on leave, transferring transgender prisoners, firing government ethics watchdog, publicly disclosing FBI staff involved in January 6th probes. Now, the disruptor-in-chief, Elon Musk, who apparently has adopted the alias, at least he changed his social media handle to Harry Balls, tweeted this morning, "Democracy in America is being destroyed by judicial coup. An activist judge is not a real judge." And as for the commander-in-chief, President Trump made his stance known yesterday. Take a listen.
I think judges will have to do the right thing, really. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole big problem with the country.
You get some very bad rulings, and it's a shame to see it, frankly. They want to sort of tell everybody how to run the country.
Your reaction to a judge today continuing a pause on the buyout program for federal workers?
Well, I don't know how you can lose a case like that.
Judges should be ruling. They shouldn't be dictating what you're supposed to be doing.
Panel is back. And Laura, I want you to listen to what Mike Johnson, who is the constitutional leader of the House of Representatives and effectively the House of Representatives and effectively the entire Congress, what he said this morning about this question.
What they're doing in the executive branch, I've been asked so many times, aren't you uncomfortable with this? No, I'm not. I think that the courts should take a step back and allow these processes to play out. What we're doing is good and right for the American people.
Laura?
Yeah, it's frankly stunning, the silence from Republicans or comments like that from Republicans, given the fact that the job of the courts, the job of judges, is to determine whether or not the other branches of government are violating the law. And so far, there are a number of judges, including Republican-appointed judges, who have said that this administration is either violating the pauses that they've put, the blocks that they've put on some of these funding freezes, or they're violating different elements of the law, including the Impoundment Act, which is that the president doesn't have the ability to claw back spending that has already been congressionally allocated. And a number of judges have said that they believe that this president's actions are potentially unconstitutional. Now, it's going to take a while for all that to play out, but there is a big question right now about whether or not this White House is even complying with multiple judges' orders, whether it's in regard to USAID or in regard to the funding freeze. And are we headed, I guess, towards a constitutional crisis because of the fact that if this president is not complying with judges' orders, what comes next? There are only a few mechanisms that the courts actually have at their disposal, and there are questions about even if they use those, would the administration abide by the law?
Yeah, I mean, when the speaker says we should let the courts take a step back and let them play out, what we're doing is good and right for the American people. It's not what he's doing. He's a bystander. It's what people in the executive branch are doing, and in many cases dismantling what Mike Johnson did, or at least what the people who had the majority votes in the United States Congress did with statutes. And so, look, I mean, that's the thing that I don't quite understand, which is people like Mike Johnson, he's a lawyer, he knows the law very well, he knows the basics of checks and balances and the role of the judicial branch in our system, which has worked relatively well for almost 250 years.
Well, suing the federal government is not new. I mean, Stephen Miller, who is a top White House advisor, had a group that was dedicated to, that was a conservative check to the ACLU, is how they described it, that would sue the Biden administration over various decisions. It's the fact that the legislative branch has basically abdicated their role here. They've decided that the executive branch can kind of do its thing, and even though some of this money was appropriated, that Republicans okayed it and voted for it, they're fine to do that. When you have the judicial branch actually doing what they're supposed to be doing and they don't like it, I guess it's not surprising that Mike Johnson is staying silent because of the role he's taken, but that doesn't mean that these judges are going to. But Laura's right. The fact that if they decide not to follow what these judges have ruled, that is uncharted territory.
And I think that we've said this many times on the show, but we'll say it again, that this is part of the strategy to just barrel through everything that they want to do. Certainly complain about the courts, and maybe even in some cases defy the courts, and just do it as quickly as they possibly can. Just want to show you a couple of quotes from the Senate side of the Capitol. John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader. The courts obviously are sort of the branch of our government that calls balls and strikes and referees. Chuck Grassley, the chair of the Judiciary Committee. I just expect the process to work its way out. Senator Eric Schmidt, who was an attorney general of Missouri, judges can rule, but it doesn't mean judges are right all the time. John Cornyn, Republican of Texas, the Constitution is the law of the land, but I share his frustration at some of these judges.
I mean, frustration is one thing. There's always frustration with an administration, but what comes next will define the Trump presidency. This showdown and how the president reacts to it and the advice that he gets will define at least the early part of it. And we do not know how this is going to end, but if there was a different president, we could be assured that the speaker and all of those Republican senators would have an entirely different viewpoint. But the reality here is that some of the list of things like birthright to citizenship, some of those things were designed to go to the Supreme Court. That's what they want to happen, and they still will. But I think the other immediate funding questions about the NIH and other funding freeze programs, to your point, they're already defying potentially some of the judges' orders. But my question here is, every one of the members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, are hearing an earful from constituents. And this is not just an academic exercise in Washington. In red states, in blue states, there are programs out there that are not being funded. Soybean farmers, for example, are not getting the funding that was promised to them. Some health centers and other things. So I think once this sort of trickles down and it becomes a real fight, we'll see if it actually changes some minds on there. But as of now, this president can't run again, and this is his fight, and we will see which choice he makes. But this will define his presidency.
All right, everybody, stand by. Coming up, Donald Trump promised the biggest tax cuts in history. I'll talk to the top tax writer in the House of Representatives to see if he can pull it off. Stay with us.